All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the District of Sechelt Committee of the Whole meeting for Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. I'd like to start by recognizing the District of Sechelt is located on the traditional unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. We respect the histories, language, and culture of the people of the Sechelt Nation, whose presence continue to enrich this community. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask for any declarations of conflict from council. Seeing none, we have an agenda before us, and I would like to ask for adoption. So moved, second. Councillor Shepherd, all in favor? That's carried. We're going to move to 4.1, and we have a proclamation for World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, June 15th, and I'd like to read it, please. Whereas seniors of the District of Sechelt are valued members of society, convey a wealth of experience and wisdom in our community, and deserve to live with dignity and respect. It is our collective responsibility to ensure they live safely and fully in a community that cares about them. And whereas victims of elder abuse are parents, grandparents, neighbors, and friends. Elder abuse is not limited by race, gender, culture, and circumstance, and whether physical, emotional, or financial elder abuse takes an unacceptable toll on individuals and families. And whereas seniors who experience abuse and neglect face a heightened risk of health-related complications, and financial abuse can rob our seniors of the security they have built over a lifetime. Tragically, many older adults suffer in silence, burdened by fear, shame, or impairments that prevent them from speaking about abuse. And whereas preventing abuse of older adults will improve the quality of life for all seniors and allow them to live as independently as possible and serve as leaders, mentors, volunteers, and important and active members of this community, contributing to the vibrancy of the District of Sechelt. Now, therefore, Mayor Henderson, on behalf of council, proclaims June 15th, 2025 as Elder Abuse Awareness Day in the District of Sechelt, and is signed by Mayor Henderson. And as myself being a designated responder for adult abuse and neglect reports in this community, it gives me an honor to read that out. Now we have Vicki Dobbin here with us today. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Vicki?
I just wanted to say that I'm the coordinator of our local community response network. We're one of 80 in the province, supported by the BC Association of Community Response Networks. And our goal, of course, is to prevent abuse, neglect, and self-neglect of vulnerable adults. And I just want to say that we have a wonderful range of service providers on the coast through Vancouver Coastal Health, Community Services, the RCMP, all work hard together to do what they can to respond. But what's as important is that citizens are aware of these situations and when they see something, to say something. So we try and get the word out of what numbers to call. You can always call Vancouver Coastal Health. At home care or mental health. There's a senior abuse information line too. So that's all I wanted to add today. And thank you very much. I really appreciate this. Really helps with awareness. And
thanks, Vicki. Thanks for coming. Okay, moving on to 4.2, we have a delegation, Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance Society. And we have Alex, is it Lagerge or Leger?
Leger, French.
Leger. Okay. Bailey Environmental Consulting and Baden Cross Applied Conservation. I will hand it over.
Perfect. I'm just going to share my screen here for a presentation. Let me know if you can all see that.
You can.
Perfect. So it's quite a bit of information to go through, so I'm going to move very quickly, and I apologize for that. So thanks everyone for having me today. My name is Alex Leger. I'm a wildlife biologist with Bailey Environmental Consulting, and I'm one of the contributing authors to Corridors for Coexistence, American Black Bear on the Sunshine Coast, Threat Guidelines and Management in Urban Areas. So black bears are a cornerstone species on the Sunshine Coast ecosystem, but as urban growth accelerates, their habitat is shrinking and human-wildlife conflict is rising. Our report identifies top threats to black bears and offers practical planning recommendations to ensure safe coexistence between bears and people. As I'm sure you know, they're the smallest and most widespread bear in North America. They have an omnivorous diet of fruits, insects, carrion, and are anthropogenic sources. But what you may not know is they have pretty niche den requirements, denning in large trees, slopes, or cavities, and require quality habitat for survival. So in this figure here, we can kind of see the general urban interface within the Sunshine Coast of built-up areas and the natural areas. So one of the focuses of our report was to assess and rank the main threats to black bears on the coast in order of severity. These are habitat fragmentation, urbanization, industrial development, road mortality, hunting and unregulated harvest, climate change, human use of trails and/or habitat, and nuisance bear removals. So it's important to note that these threats are compound and complementary to one another. It's their total cumulative impact that is leading to a population decline. However, it's valuable to look at these threats individually so efforts can be focused on the more severe threats. So the top one, habitat fragmentation, as development breaks up large tracts of contiguous forests, bear movement and access to essential habitat features such as food sources, denning sites, and mates are all disrupted. Coastal bears depend on large diameter trees or wooden structures derived from trees and trees, hollows, and stumps for denning. Urbanization converts bear habitat into residential and commercial zones, again, disrupting movement and access to natural food sources. The reduced availability in food in turn increases bears' reliance on garbage and human attractants and increases the overall risk of conflict and lethal bear removals. Similarly, industrial development clears old growth forest used for denning, expands roads and infrastructure that fragments habitat more, disrupts movement and seasonal foraging, increases noise, light, and disturbance within their habitat, forces them to use less ideal habitat. And unfortunately, the same characteristics that make trees ideal for denning sites are also what make them ideal for forest harvest operations. Currently in BC, there's over 750,000 kilometers of resource roads. These are non-highway dirt and gravel roads used to access timber and mining resources within BC. And they're increasing at about a rate of 10,000 kilometers of new road per year. 64% of the Sunshine Coast already exceeds the known road density threshold used for bear management of 0.6 kilometers of road per kilometer square. So as we can see on this next figure, the amount of available habitat quickly drops off when we apply that 0.6 kilometer threshold of road density. There's also limited direct information on the current population status of bears in both British Columbia and the Sunshine Coast. Population estimates have not been updated in more than 20 years. Within the Sunshine Coast Wildlife Management Unit, there were 838 black bears harvested between 1976 and 2023, an average of 17 bears a year. While it's a relatively small number, we can see in the figure there's an increase in hunter effort while there are fewer harvests each year, suggesting the population decline. Climate change alters food availability and seasonality, increases the risk of drought, fire, and heat stress. Bears are especially vulnerable to heat and hyperthermia. The same physical characteristics that give them an edge in surviving harsh winter conditions work against them in hot summers. And bears will increasingly turn to urban areas in lean food years. Human use of trails, our recreational activity, displaces bears from their preferred habitat. Frequent human presence increases stress and avoidance of areas. Bears may abandon high-quality areas to avoid encounters with humans. It also increases the risks of habituation and conflict near trails. And lastly, nuisance bear removals. A problem bear is a dead bear. From 2012 to 24, there were 7,551 bears destroyed in BC. An average of 580 bears per year. From 2015 to 24, there's a total of 51 black bears destroyed in the communities of Gibsons and Seashelt. While the yearly number of destroyed bears is relatively small, it does represent an entirely avoidable scenario that's usually the result of poor human behavior. So to address all these threats and concerns, the second objective of our report was to create a develop with care guiding document to highlight policy tools that can protect bear habitat, in which we detail the Sunshine Coast community planning frameworks and their applicability to black bear conservation. describe where and how to find black bears, their travel corridors and denning sites. And lastly, we outline the process of conducting bear den surveys, what to do once you've identified a bear den, and the steps for post-retention bear den monitoring. So black bear habitat on the Sunshine Coast spans a wide variety of ecosystems ranging from coastal shorelines to mountainous terrain. These habitats support the full range of life history requirements, including areas for foraging, cover, travel corridors, and denning. However, the availability and quality of these habitats across the region is getting increasingly affected by human development. A significant portion of the coastal area has already been developed to support residential and commercial infrastructure. As well, forest harvesting activities have led to the loss of substantial areas of old growth forest in which essential habitat type for the black bear denning. And two of the key habitat features that are of high importance are travel corridors and denning habitat, both of which are undergoing pressure from land use changes. So here we can see urban areas and general forest cover. The bare patches in the figure are barren mountain slopes or peaks. However, when we examine the age classes of that forest cover, we can see there's little to old growth remaining and limited secondary growth stands still in place. To help identify potential black bear corridors within the region, we developed a model to detail where this habitat may currently exist. So these corridors are essential to permit safe travel of bears between summer and winter habitats and access to seasonal food, denning, and mates. As we can see, they're largely constrained to mountain valley bottoms, riparian areas, and sections of undeveloped coastline. And to support the ID of suitable bear denning habitat within the Sunshine Coast, we developed a model which identified the high capability of denning habitat. Black bears select large secure trees and stumps for tree den sites, and these are features typically available in old growth forest. Currently, less than 1% of habitat above 250 meters elevation of the Sunshine Coast represents the best potential denning habitat. And one of the final pieces of our report was the development of a conflict management protocol. So we detail in there how introducing and supporting the following measures, such as a bear education program, bear-proof waste management systems, the control of attractants within communities, and bear smart bylaws and enforcement can lower the overall amount of human-wildlife conflict and promote human-bear coexistence. Lastly, we outlined several planning and policy recommendations. These recommendations aim to integrate wildlife considerations into municipal decision-making, ensuring that growth, development, and land use align with ecological values and reduce conflict over time. Our key recommendations include integrating bear habitat protection into official community plans, establishing buffers around dens and corridors, mandating bear den surveys prior to clearing, creating uniform bear protection policies across all Sunshine Coast municipalities, and enforcing tree and attractant bylaws. There are already certain areas in BC that enforce these such recommendations, being Haida Gwaii and the Great Bear Rainforest. So in summary, black bears on the Sunshine Coast face a series of interconnected threats from habitat loss to human conflict. A reactive approach to habitat loss is insufficient as critical habitat just takes too long to replenish naturally. But these challenges are more manageable with adaptive planning. So the report we put together offers practical tools such as the develop with care, habitat mapping, and local policy recommendations that can help guide more wildlife conscious development. And that by aligning our planning decisions with conservation goals, we can strengthen ecological resilience in the region and ensure black bears remain a valued part of the Sunshine Coast for many generations yet to come. All right, so that is my piece. And if you have any questions for me.
Thank you. Any questions, Council? Councillor Shepherd?
Thanks very much for the report, Mr. Leger. Actually, this same issue just came up when council was involved with the Sechelt Nation land use plan, which is underway. And the Sechelt Nation places a lot of emphasis on protecting key populations, salmon, bear, grizzly bear, within the SWIA of their traditional lands. So I can see the policies that your recommendation sort of coming into alignment with what they're proposing as well. I'm a little bit confused. I can see it, the applicability in the areas outside of the district of Sechelt. For instance, our community forest, they place a lot of emphasis on wildlife corridors, but I'm a little bit confused about how it's implemented within the district urban boundary. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is going to be a little bit different for each community along the Sunshine Coast. However, it's going to be the uniformity of enforcing these laws that'll make them successful. If one community has amazing, let's say, wildlife bylaw and attractant bylaws, but the town next door does not, it's not going to overly improve the situation. So that's why within all the communities on the coast, it's pretty important that everyone is on the same page as best we can. Obviously, in some instances, it will be tailored a little bit differently to communities, but if the overarching goal is identified by all the communities, hopefully we can aid in conservation.
Councillor Inkster.
Thank you. Thanks for this presentation. It has quite a lot of what I would consider meaty information on this issue. Within Sechelt, I was just last week talking about wildlife corridors in Sechelt and how we try to create them and or preserve existing ones. Did you do a lot of research were you in Sechelt when you did this? Were you on the Sunshine Coast?
I personally was not. I've been to the area for other projects in the past that I've been part of. But Diane, the chair of the Sunshine Coast Bear Alliance, she has been on the ground throughout the entire process.
Okay, great. There's in Sechelt, there's two riparian green areas that I see as really key for bears, and that's Wakefield Creek in West Sechelt and Chapman Creek on the other side of town. Just keeping animals near to water is obviously fairly key, and the shade that those areas provide. So I'm wondering if they took a look at those two areas, other than the connective corridors that will try to retain and or create that cross town, and see if those areas are functional in the sense of bear protection, just because of the availability of water, shade, den areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were features that were considered when we developed the corridor figure. The GIS expert on our project, Baden, he could probably more aptly answer the variable questions that went into actually developing the model. He wrote that piece. But those factors you just said were elements that went into that figure design.
Thanks. Were you going for your microphone, Councillor McLaughlin? No? Yes? Yeah?
Read my mind. Hi, thanks. I'm just wondering, is it not possible, though, to build wildlife corridors through urban areas? I was talking to somebody about Gibson's, and I thought they were trying to study and start and create an actual wildlife corridor through the urban area, because as Councillor Inkster was saying, the bears do like to get down to the ocean. I remember last summer I was walking along and somebody was going, "Oh, there's a bear walking along," and there's like 50 people strolling around. So we're seeing more bears downtown, but some of the locals are thinking that we used to have, treed areas that were on hillsides that are now developed with housing, and they used to know where the bears went, and also that they'd come down to certain urban areas for blackberries in particular. So we sort of know where it was, but now I don't know how we can protect those bears, because, we do see that the bears are being killed downtown, and a lot of people are very upset about it. Some people are doing a great job with their garbage, and other people are growing tons of fruit, and they're not there very often. So, like you say, I think we just need stronger bylaws and to hold things to account. And I do tell visitors now that if you're in the main level, do not leave your window open in the summer. Sorry, we can't do that anymore, because I know I've seen the bear go through on my video cam through my yard. He likes it. Thanks.
Yeah. No problem. No, absolutely. I agree with you. And I do think it is possible to have these corridors within urban areas. It just ultimately depends on public reception. Some people are thrilled to have bears in their neighborhood, others are not. And the enforcement and bylaws will go hand in hand with that, and how bears behave in acted human environments. My own neighborhood bears are here in my yard every other day, and they don't mess with my home. However, my neighbors 2 doors up that don't have a secure bin, that bin gets knocked over every single Thursday night for garbage day. So it just depends on, again, making sure there's uniform bylaws across all the communities or within town with stricter enforcement so that this negative human behavior can be corrected.
Thank you. Is that it, council? Anything else? Oh, Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder, I'm curious what makes a tree appropriate for denning? And perhaps you could explain how you define old growth? Thank you.
Yeah, so old growth are trees that are over 250 years old. The secondary growth sections are trees between 80 years and 250 years, and everything else is under 80 years old. And then for that denning model habitat, so bears typically den in areas of elevation over 250 meters in older hemlocks and cedars. And I'm just going through my report here. I believe there's a very particular cavity size that bears required in order to use a den tree. And that's kind of why these old growth trees are so important, because the newer growth, the trees are simply not large enough to produce a safe denning site. These bears are either succumbing to the elements, they're getting predated by wolves, they're cannibalizing in some instances over limited den habitats available. And we're seeing increased competition between bears and amongst bears.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councillor
Yeah,
Bell.
Through the chair. Yes, thank you for the report. It's excellent and certainly very interesting. Of good data in there. The one question I have is around the study. Is this an initiative that is being done outside of the Sunshine Coast as well? Is it a provincial? Where does it stand in that respect?
So unfortunately, black bears are afforded no provincial protection right now. There are people trying to change that. Actually, the same topic was just covered in the CBC article maybe 2-3 weeks ago now. So there are some independent communities that are doing their own protections. Like I said, Haida Gwaii and Great Bear Rainforest being the only two that do actually have the mandated bear den surveys prior to forest clearing. So ultimately, it's up to kind of the municipalities to enforce these changes if they would like to see them present at this time. There are many lobbying the government for stronger regulations, but at the time they're not there. And like I said, the current data we have is more than 20 years old. It's outdated and it's not applicable to the province as a whole.
Right. Yeah, good. Okay, so so you mentioned two, Haida Gwaii, and what was the other area?
The Great Bear Rainforest.
Yeah, so they've operationalized this in a sense.
Yeah. Foresters in those areas need to do the bear den surveys prior to and do the retention and bear den monitoring.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alex, for the presentation. I think that brings us to a close for this. So thank you for this great information and for coming today.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, Councillor Bell, you want to turn your microphone off? Thanks. Okay, so that brings us to 5.1, Sechelt Community Association Forum Funding Request, alternative funding for community investment program grant application. And as I recall, this was something that one of us asked to come back to a committee of the whole. I'm going to think, I know a few of us talked about it. We don't have a presentation. We do have an attachment with regards to the recent emergency preparedness event. And the Queen of Emergency Preparedness is in the gallery to answer any questions that one might have. So is it in there? I believe it was $4,000, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I believe, do you want to speak to it, Councillor Inkster? Because I think it was you that made the motion to bring it back.
I think it's a good idea. It was Counselor Shepherd, I think, but I think it's a good idea. So I'm in favor of helping this group do the good work they do in the community. Counselor Shepherd, Chair.
Counselor Bell.
Yes, through the chair. I'm also in favor of bringing this back. I'm totally aware of the great work that the community associations do. They're an important part of a community. And I think that there's more work for them to do as we look at, the climate change issues and the number of things, community safety, a lot of things that are happening in our communities now. I think they are extra eyes and ears and certainly very dedicated to their communities. So I am glad to see this come back to the table.
Okay, so just to be clear, so this is coming back as a request for $4,000 to cover the development of a website for, to be run by staff. And what staff would be looking for would be how we'd be looking to provide funds for that. Correct? Okay. Counselor Shepherd.
Thanks, Madam Chair. A little bit of confusion over the number. Their initial request to the CIP grant was 4,000, and we have the copy in our report. When I think it was myself or Councillor Inkster made the motion to, when they were refused, and we asked that it come back to committee of the whole, I'm so slow that when Catherine Hansen suggested that it come back, she asked for 5,000. And I unwittingly said yes. So I'm, despite what's in the report, I'd like to agree to the 5,000 because they've just put in so many volunteer hours, on the emergency fair, and they have so much work, as Councillor Bell's mentioned, still to do, well beyond just the website, that I guess I'm making a motion that the amount be $5,000. And B, I think you, Chair, had mentioned that it had come out of a council travel account.
So we actually have a council contingency fund. So this is very unusual that we would bring something forward to come out of that fund, I believe. And the reason, I'll just speak to why I wanted to bring this back. I think that this group has, put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, insofar as the community building work that they have done. And although I think we can help share the information and advertise on our webpage and stuff, I think at the end of the day, with the amount of stuff that could potentially go on between emergency preparedness and community safety, that would actually be a burden on our staff. Number one. And number two, I think they need to have the ability to sort of build that from the ground up. And so I just want to really recognize, oh, this is really, really unusual. And I do worry about sort of the precedent and the slippery slope around other community groups. So I want to be very clear. My intention is to fund, for that money to go towards the building of a website, not for paying for expenses for anything else. That's what I would be in support of. But I just wanted to speak to the council contingency piece. It's not related, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Douglas, it's not related to the travel budget.
That's correct. Council contingencies where I would recommend it come from.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Inkster.
I'm seconding the motion that Councillor Shepherd put forward, unless you were.
No?
Okay.
No. I
Can you
would,
spoke
but that's
next?
fine.
Okay, I'll do it. I'm just speaking to the motion now that it's a little bit clear that Councillor Shepherd, I think, was as connected the staff would have probably brought this forward. I spoke earlier about the good work this group does. I'm not concerned that it comes out of contingency. Our contingency is not usually that bare bone. And I know that, I know because I've talked about it that we earn a lot of interest on our accounts. So we do have some, can deal with some of these throughout the year. It's such a small amount to our overall budget that we approve. The other thing that I would ask though, is I'm interested to see how the website looks because SCAF, the name itself, I'm not sure how people will find that if they're looking for you. I think Sechelt Community Associations would probably be easier to find. And I would ask if forum, as part of that website, unless you're communicating with your members, almost like an internal system of communication would work better with forum being part of that, but Sechelt Community Associations being for the website. Because I think the forum was, in a sense, the word to describe them communicating with each other and communicating with council as part of a forum. But when they're letting everyone else know, it might be good to drop F and just say Sechelt Community Association website so that people know exactly what they're looking for. Thanks.
Okay, any questions? Yep, Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also supportive of providing some funding for doing this website. I think what SCAF is trying to accomplish ties really well into our strategic plan and the things that we know that are important in our community. I'm a little personally concerned about the $4,000, $5,000 difference because the paperwork that we have in front of us says $4,000. So in the absence of a little more context around the change to that number, I would be interested in amending it to say up to $5,000. With the idea being that we're not just cutting them a check for $5,000, we're cutting them a check for their website project costs. And hopefully it's going to be less than $5,000. So I'd move up to $5,000 as an amendment.
Can we do that as a friendly amendment?
I'm acceptable to that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions, Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you through the chair. I've always been supportive of them applying for the money to do this. I think it's really important. And now it's become really apparent, I think. But I'm just wondering too, if it would be possible to, given the uniqueness of the situation, to request receipts for the digital designer that they're going to use, just so that we have some documentation to show the whole approach. Thank you.
Were you wanting to say something? Director
Yeah, I
Dunn?
think we would handle this very similar to a CIP grant, as the application is a CIP, came through CIP program. Yes, we're approving this to the side of it, but I think we'll deal with it like the CIP, which means they get, I think it's 90% of the funding, and they have to prepare a final report to get the rest of the money. So that's the way we would handle that.
Okay, thank you. And Mayor Henderson, did you have your hand up? No, you're good? Okay. All right, any further questions or comments? Are you clear on the resolution there, corporate officer? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed, that carried. All right, and thank you, Diana Mumford, for everything that you do. Do you want to say anything in 2 minutes or less? Don't get wordy on me.
No, I'm not. I'm absolutely elated with the support that you've given us. We desperately need that website, and in watching the recent news about wildfires and things, we want this to be up and going as quickly as possible to get people aware, because we do sit in a forest here on the Sunshine Coast, and the more information we can get to our residents, the better. So it will be well used. It is only going for our website, and I am beyond excited about the opportunities that this will give us, because we've got a lot of people still ordering our emergency kits, and we can keep building on that and building what we can do for communities. So we put the labor into it, and this is very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I also just want to recognize all the traveling you've been doing outside of this SCAF area 2 other meetings, and I've been hearing from other community members from Pender all the way down. Who is this Diana Mumford woman? So, well done, and turn your microphone off, please.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. All right, I guess I will ask for a motion to adjourn in second. All in favor? Well, no questions in the gallery. Is there anybody online, Sir Christopher? All right. Oh, if you have any questions, can you put your hand up, please, online?